Hello, how are you? Today I'm going to talk to you what you can add to your rice to completely change its metabolic impact on your body. I'll tell you about ingredients that, with just a spoonful, can give you very interesting results for your health. You're going to love this video. Stay until the end. You won't want to miss it. Before we start, tell me, do you eat rice daily? A lot of people eat rice every day. And what type of rice do you eat? This tip works for any kind of rice, whether it's brown rice, white, parboiled, whatever rice you eat on a daily basis. But I want to know which one is the most popular in your house. What's the family's go-to rice? Write it for me down here in the comments. Remember to leave your like on the video, that's really important to me. It shows YouTube that you support the channel and trust my content. And if you know someone who loves rice but wants tips to improve things like blood sugar, glucose spikes, satiety, and so on, share this video. Let's grow our chain of kindness. When we think about rice, rice is basically starch, right? So it's made up of glucose chains. When we eat rice, it's quickly digested by the enzymes present, mainly the enzyme amylase, and then it breaks down into glucose and enters the bloodstream relatively quickly. So this leads to a rapid increase in blood sugar, insulin release, and possibly a drop a few hours later. So usually, people who eat a large amount of white rice may feel sleepy after lunch, get hungry sooner, and experience energy fluctuations. Sometimes you feel kind of tired, unmotivated. So ideally, we should try to boost this rice a bit. And these tips I'm going to share with you here will make even white rice or parboiled rice have as much fiber in some cases as brown rice itself. So there are people who say, oh, I really wanted to eat brown rice because of the fiber, but I can't because of the taste. So these tips here can really help you with that. I'm going to tell you about 4 different foods here to help you, and I'll definitely start with psyllium, which is the most powerful for glucose. I put it first here both because of its effectiveness and its acceptability, because psyllium is a pure soluble fiber and it doesn't taste like anything. It's completely white, yellowish, almost transparent. So when you mix it into rice, you can't even tell there's psyllium in it. So if the goal is to reduce the glycemic spike, psyllium is probably the strongest on our list here. As I told you, psyllium is highly viscous. When it comes into contact with water, it forms a thick gel. And this gel slows gastric emptying, decreases the contact of starch with digestive enzymes, and reduces the rate of glucose absorption. So, clinical studies have already found that adding psyllium to a meal can significantly reduce blood sugar levels after lunch or dinner. So, this helps not only with blood sugar control, but also with the weight loss process. If you want to control your weight, lowering insulin spikes helps you. And also, when you consume psyllium, it forms this gel that expands, so it greatly increases the feeling of fullness, making it even more interesting. Since it also contains these fibers, it can help excrete cholesterol in the stool. So it's good for cardiovascular health, and as a bonus, it improves intestinal transit. So it's wonderful. The issue with psyllium is that you need very little of it. Of all the ones I'm going to talk to you about, this is the one you'll use in the smallest amount. I'm giving general guidelines here. The amount can always vary from person to person. If you have any questions, consult your nutritionist or your doctor in your city. But usually, a teaspoon of psyllium mixed into your rice will already have a big effect on the glycemic response, and a teaspoon is very little, right? So it also goes a long way. Usually, when I use psyllium in my rice, I serve the amount of rice I want on my plate. Sprinkle a teaspoon of psyllium on top and give it a quick mix. It blends in really fast. So it's a great addition. Another thing you can add, another ingredient, is chia. And chia is also extremely interesting, and just like psyllium, it has no flavor but does have a visual aspect. So if you're someone who sometimes has a harder time with this, or might get a bit put off by it, for someone who is more sensitive, chia stands out more than psyllium. But chia has other benefits too. Because while psyllium is pure fiber, chia has fiber, and it also contains these interesting fibers that form this mucilage, which provides early satiety and helps prevent spikes and drops in glucose. It also contains a very interesting fat, which is a precursor to omega-3. So in a more complete way, it acts on several fronts because it helps slow down glucose absorption, increases the feeling of fullness, and reduces that hunger afterwards. But since it also contains omega-3, this omega-3 also contributes to the feeling of satiety. It's an anti-inflammatory fat that is very good for our health. So chia can really help from various angles to improve blood sugar issues, improve intestinal transit, facilitate bowel movements, and prevent constipation, all because of these fibers and healthy fats it contains. When we think about the amount of chia to add, usually when you're going to include it in your plate of rice that you've decided to eat, it's important to consider a balanced portion. A good amount can be from 1 teaspoon to 1 tablespoon of chia, depending on your needs. Up to 1 tablespoon is a very reasonable amount for that meal. And as I mentioned, it really helps with satiety, so it also expands that feeling that the rice really filled you up. And it's an excellent addition, as I said before, also because it doesn't affect the taste, only the visual aspect. Another food you might consider adding to your rice after it's cooked is apple cider vinegar. In this case, we're not talking about fiber, but rather about a metabolic effect it can have, because vinegar contains acetic acid, and this acetic acid may be related to slowing down gastric emptying and reducing the activity of some enzymes that digest starch. It's not a free pass for you to eat as much as you want. Just because you're adding vinegar doesn't mean you should overdo the quantity, but it can help in this regard. And it can also help improve insulin sensitivity. So when you consume vinegar together with rice, it can help reduce the glycemic spike. And the insulin response is more controlled, also helping to prevent those episodes of hunger afterwards, like I mentioned to you before. So this mechanism is chemical, not physical like fiber, but that doesn't mean it doesn't work. In fact, it works in a very interesting way. And it gives a really interesting flavor too. If you like Japanese food, you must be used to that little taste of rice with vinegar, which the Japanese eat a lot. They consume more rice vinegar. In this case, I'm talking about apple cider vinegar, but even so, it's super tasty. So you can put a teaspoon or a tablespoon of vinegar on top of your rice once it's on the plate, and it tastes great. If you eat it with salad, mixed into the meal like this, it works really well. There are still other things you can add, which are 2 seeds that I put in the same category here, because you need to do some prep work before adding them to the rice. It's not that you have to, but it helps with the absorption of their nutrients, which are flaxseed and pumpkin seeds. Although flaxseed is very similar to chia in terms of composition and benefits, I put it here together with pumpkin seeds, because ideally we should grind them before sprinkling them over the rice. Or you should chew them very, very thoroughly to break down these seeds well. Flaxseed is very similar to chia. It also contains soluble fibers, omega-3, and lignans, so it really helps with weight loss and blood sugar control. And pumpkin seeds are very interesting because they are rich in magnesium, rich in zinc, they have protein, fibers, and help with insulin sensitivity. So it ends up improving the speed of digestion, the insulin response, satiety, and even the gut environment itself. So these are very interesting options for you to add. And then, in the same way, you can add a tablespoon of them ground, or even if you want, you can mix pumpkin seeds with flax seeds in a jar, mix them in equal amounts, then take a spoonful of this mixture, grind it, and sprinkle it over the rice on your plate. It's also a great option for you to add to your daily routine. I have to tell you, I've already touched on this before, but I need to remind you that adding a spoonful of psyllium, chia, vinegar, flaxseed, or pumpkin seeds is not a free pass for you to start eating more rice. That's not the idea of this video. The idea isn't to say, oh, that's it. Now that I've added something to the rice, I don't need to worry anymore. There's no point in ignoring the quantity, because if you fill your plate with 4 huge scoops of rice and add a tablespoon of psyllium or chia, it's not going to have that much of an impact. So I said 4 huge scoops, exaggerating, but remember that ideally you should control and balance this. The base of our plate, ideally, should always be vegetables and greens, and we should also add a healthy protein, legumes. And if we include things like beans, peas, chickpeas, and so on, and then a bit of carbohydrate as well, in the form of rice. The idea is not for it to be rice with other things. This is an important point for us to remember. So tell me here, which of these options would you add to your rice, or if you already add them and are happy to know that it's a great choice? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to see your comment. Remember to like the video. That really helps me out, and share it with anyone who would enjoy it or needs it. Let's expand this chain of kindness. That's what I want here with the channel. See you next time. Bye.